Family Guy has been a staple of animated television for over 2 decades, and over the years, its characters have undergone significant changes, some for the better, and others, well, not so much. But no character has experienced a more dramatic decline than Brian Griffin. Once the voice of reason, the moral compass, and Peter's level-headed best friend, Brian has devolved into a pretentious, egotistical, and often cruel shadow of his former self. So what happened? How did this intelligent, thoughtful dog become the douchebag we know today? When Family Guy first premiered in 1999, Brian was a standout character. He was sharp, witty, and carried a dry sense of humor that balanced out the show's often absurd and crass tone. As Peter's conscience and the show's moral center, Brian was a refreshing counterpoint to the Griffin family's chaos. He was well-read, politically aware, and deeply introspective, often grappling with existential questions about his place in the world as a talking dog. In many ways, Brian felt like Seth MacFarlane's self-insert character, a way for the creator to infuse his own personality, beliefs, and love for jazz and Sinatra into the show. And it worked. Brian's early episodes were some of the most heartfelt and thought-provoking moments in Family Guy's history. Take, for example, Season 1's Portrait of a Dog, where Brian confronts the harsh reality of being a second-class citizen. The episode tackles themes of inequality and discrimination, with Brian even referencing the landmark segregation case Plessy v. Ferguson in court. It was a bold move for a show known for its fart jokes, and it showcased Brian's depth as a character. Similarly, Season 2's Brian in Love revealed his abandonment issues, adding emotional layers to his personality. And who could forget Season 3's Brian Wallows and Peter's Swallows, where Brian forms a touching bond with an elderly woman named Pearl. Their love story, though tragically short-lived, remains one of the most heartfelt moments in the series. But as Family Guy continued, something shifted. Around Season 8 or 9, Brian began to change. His intelligence and moral compass were replaced by pretentiousness, hypocrisy, and a relentless pursuit of women. Gone was the dog who craved meaningful connections. In his place was a self-absorbed hound dog who prioritized his own ego above all else. This shift coincided with Seth MacFarlane stepping back from the show's creative side to focus on other projects like Ted. Without MacFarlane's guiding hand, Brian lost his purpose. He was no longer the voice of reason or the show's moral anchor. Instead, he became a caricature of his former self. One of the most glaring examples of Brian's decline came in Season 12's Life of Brian, where he was shockingly killed off. The episode sparked massive backlash, with fans petitioning to bring him back. But here's the twist. Brian's return was always part of the plan. It was a calculated move to generate buzz, and when he came back, his worst traits were amplified. He became even more selfish, manipulative, and downright unlikable. Whether he was scamming Quagmire, giving Stewie herpes, or neglecting his own son, Brian's actions made it hard to root for him. Even his political leanings, once a source of pride, became a joke. In Season 16's The Whiff of Wall Street, Brian literally sells out his own kind for profit, only to blame the system when he faces consequences. It's a far cry from the dog who once fought for equality and justice. So where does that leave us with Brian? Is he a lost cause? Not entirely. While his earlier seasons showcased a more complex and relatable character, there's still something oddly entertaining about douchebag Brian. His pretentiousness and pseudo-intellectual rants can be hilarious, especially when Stewie calls him out on his nonsense. And let's be honest, the Stewie and Brian episodes are still some of the best the show has to offer. But it's hard not to miss the Brian who once stood for something, the dog who wasn't afraid to tackle big issues and show vulnerability. In the end, Brian Griffin's decline reflects a larger shift in Family Guy itself. The show has always been edgy and irreverent, but as it's aged, its characters have become more exaggerated and less nuanced. Brian's transformation from a thoughtful, introspective character to a self-serving jerk is a prime example of this. While he's still capable of delivering laughs, it's hard not to wonder what could have been if the writers had stayed true to his original essence. So, what do you think? Do you prefer the old Brian or the new one?